Hello everyone, my name's Cliff and welcome back to my channel. This is Cliff's Dark Gems. Today I'm going to be doing a book review of Toady by Mark Morris, and this was one of my book reads for Old School April. It was my horror read and I look forward to talking about it with you. Stay tuned. Now I have to say that Toady is one extremely underrated, underappreciated gem. It's got some very old school Stephen King vibes like It, and I really think that this author deserves a lot more attention than he's given. I've been on Goodreads and I've seen it's got very few ratings, and this is a big surprise because this was an absolute wonderful read. It's set in a small seaside town called Starmouth in the middle of winter. Now this town relies on tourism, and as a result there's no tourism. It's the middle of winter, it's after Christmas, and everything just seems broken down, derelict. The town is almost struggling, and I really feel like the atmosphere is so claustrophobic as a result of the weather, of just the whole feel of this town. However, in the last 200 pages or so, the author takes us elsewhere and the story really takes off. There's some incredible world building, some real sense of dark fantasy, and in fact the story almost explodes out of the setting. It is dark, it is dangerous, and it is fantastical. All the characters in the story are incredibly well developed, incredibly believable, and they're either incredibly likable or unlikable. And this is not just about the four boys around which the story takes place, but even the parents and the families and the bullies, and I'm going to come into that later. Everyone in the story it's just so believable, and as a result you get so immersed into what is happening to these people. Also there's police involvement. You get to know these police people that become involved with this whole supernatural thing, and that seems very unlikely in so many novels like this, but it makes it almost more believable. And there's this incredible psychic old woman, was like a grandmother figure to these boys, and she's absolutely awesome as well. Now let's talk a little bit about the story. We've got Richard, Robin and Nigel, and these are young boys at the school, and they are bullied, they are outcasts, and they form a society called the Horror Club. Now if you've got anything, think about It and you think about the Loser Club. It's kind of similar, but I think it's unfair to compare this author to Stephen King, because this book deserves to be spoken about on its own merits. It's a wonderful novel on its own. Now these boys recruit another outcast named Toady, or rather his name is Adrian, and this boy is an outcast amongst the outcasts. He is being bullied his whole life, he's overweight, he doesn't trust anyone, and he's not particularly fond of the idea of just reading horror comics books and watching movies on VHS tapes. That's right, VHS. This is the 80s, and this is where TVs have only 4 channels. A very interesting setting, a nostalgic 80s kind of feel about the whole novel. Now he decides to persuade the boys to go with him and do a seance, which is a ritual to call up spirits, and they end up doing this in an old abandoned derelict house in a terrible part of the neighborhood, and they do this at the dead of night when the rest of the town is sleeping, and unwittingly call upon this terrible evil into the town, which impacts on not just the boys' lives but the whole town. Now this evil is very interesting and completely original. I've never read anything like this, and really I don't think it can be copied by other authors very easily either. Now these boys do all this despite being warned by this psychic old grandmother figure, wonderful character. And soon really all hell breaks loose in this town, and this woman becomes sort of part of their story. And I don't want to go into too much detail, but she becomes almost like, as I say, this grandmother figure to these boys, and in particular to Richard, who Richard and Toady become almost the central figures out of these four boys, and we see the story through their eyes. Now, one of the things I found so interesting about this novel is that they're not just fighting this supernatural creature or creatures. You'll know what I mean by that when you read the novel. But there is a lot of threat to them by these bullies in town, a physical threat. And they are some of the nastiest, horrifying, horrible people, kids, that you cannot imagine. You can compare them to Stephen King and the bullies in Stephen King. But these guys that come after these boys, the horror club, are, in my mind anyway, 10 times, 20 times worse with their switchblades. And one is a skinhead, and they really are completely immoral. They have no feeling about what they're doing at all, and even adults fear them. So what did I really love about this novel? Well, first of all, the characters, as I said, incredibly fleshed out, incredibly interesting and original. I also loved the fact that these boys come from almost broken families. Richard seems to have the most normal family out of all of them, and that's saying something. The mothers have a big influence on the boys and their boys' lives, and they become quite important in shaping the characters that we see before us. In addition to that, as I said, the bullies, but it's every single part of the story, every character becomes something important, and I really enjoyed that. The nature of the evil. Now, I don't want to give away spoilers, but it doesn't seem to be one single thing. And this evil has certain special abilities that you notice. A lot of people get murdered. It invades the boys' minds. They have nightmares, they have bad dreams, and it really becomes quite terrifying. The style of writing is wonderful. It is descriptive, it's imaginative, and some of the set pieces and some of the imagery of the horror is just really dark. And he goes to certain places in the second half of the novel where, wow, I haven't heard anything like that before, and it chills you to the bone. I really enjoyed the style of writing and the themes, and it was fantastic. And finally, as I mentioned, the dark, fantastical world building that explodes the story at the end, the last 200, 100 pages in particular. It really takes it from this claustrophobic setting, and still is a feeling of claustrophobia, and then just you go places with this story that are very surprising. At certain parts that maybe are a little bit overdone, but I was so into the story that I kind of overlooked that, and I just enjoyed every word. Okay, so what did I not like about this story? Well, I must be honest, not a hell of a lot. I really loved this tale. Now, there were some things in this other world, maybe, dimension, whatever, that seem a little out of place with the running of the story, with the pacing, and maybe it didn't need to be there. However, it worked for me because by that time I just enjoying every single thing that he was showing us. It was almost like reminiscence of some of Clive Barker's dark fantasy, like The Great and Secret Show, like WeWorld, like some of those ones, Everville. He takes you to places and very strange. There's some very bizarre things that happen in the story, and it's absolutely wonderful. Now, another thing perhaps is there was one town, and I'm not going to go into any spoilers, this town called Red, and it really did seem to be a scene that just was dropped randomly in the middle of nowhere. But as I say, even there, I could have stayed there for a little while longer. It was just so interesting. Okay everyone, so in conclusion, considering Toady is a debut novel that was written by Mark Morris when he was 22 years old, now that is young. This is a remarkable achievement, and I think it should be given a lot more love than it's been given. and I think it is well worth picking it up as a dark gem. This is a dark gem. So let me know what you think about this book and about this review. Please leave a comment in the section down dark below, and please be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time. Keep those pages turning. Cheers.